It's so nice to be here and so nice to see all your faces and see some other Mayyim Hayyim folks here and some non-Mayyim Hayyim folks here. Okay, so I also have two stories and we'll see if we can get them both in 5 minutes. I will say one of them is about something that I heard someone say that kind of changed my understanding of the world around me. And one of them is something I heard myself say. They kind of changed the way that I understand the world around me. So I'm used to working with teenagers. I've worked with teenagers my whole life. And so working at Mayyim Hayyim is actually like very different because I work almost exclusively with adults. And adults in need feels like a growth spot for me in many ways. Children in need is my kind of like, that's my jam. And so I was guiding for someone who came in, and like, as soon as she came in, it was very clear she needed a lot of support. And she sat down right away and she started telling me that she suffers from a chronic illness, and this was the first time that she was well enough to come in. She had a cane, and she really wanted to talk about what she was going to do when she got into the mikveh. And so I was like, oh, great. Let's talk about it. Got really excited. And we were like I was talking about all the ceremonies that we have, and like, transitions happen whether we want them to or not, but we get to choose how we want to mark them. And she stopped me and she was like, you know what? Just have to say that like conversing with people is something that makes the psychological part of my illness kind of spiral. And I can't understand what you're saying, because you're talking too much. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Okay, great. I hear that. So we chose a whole bunch of ceremonies for her. She went in, I think she had like 7 of them. And I told her she could have as many as she wanted. And then she went in and I showed her room. And then she called me and she said she had more ideas. So she wanted to talk to me a little bit more. And so I was like, yes, that sounds great. And we talked a little bit more and I found her something else. And then I was getting the mikveh ready. She was in the prep room. I'm getting the mikveh ready. I'm putting out the little bath mat. And she opens the door to the mikveh. And I was like, oh, hi. And she came in and she sat down and she was like, I had more thoughts. And then she just sits down. And I think for like 15 minutes, she just was talking and just like, she was talking. It was very clear she was talking through her own thing, because she was like, well, there's this, and then there's also that. And then there's this, and there's also that. And but then there's also, and I understood that she didn't want me to talk very much. And then finally I was kind of like, it sounds to me, she said that she has had a lot of people interpret her own experience for her. And it was very clear to me that there are people in her life who've told her she's not experiencing what she's experiencing. I think she was very clearly dealing with many doctors in her life who were telling her something wasn't wrong with her. And she was saying they were. She was very, very vague about it. And I said, it sounds like, you might want to set an intention for being able to kind of see the humanity in other people. She had said something to that effect. And she said, yeah. I think I need to set an intention to see the humanity in everybody. And then I said nothing. And then she said, I think the hardest thing about that is to be able to see that if everybody has the humanity that I want to see in them, then I have it too. And I was just quiet. And I was like, okay. And she was like, okay. She like walked back into her prep room and she got ready. And I brought her some more things. I copied some things for her. And it was like, so I am very used to working with children and being able to like draw things out of them. And it was like so clear to me in that moment. All I had to do was just stand there and say, yes, no, yes, no. Here's what I heard you say. And then she was like, here's what I actually said. And what I actually said was, I'm having trouble seeing the humanity in myself. And I need to be able to see that because no one else is giving that to me right now. And it was like, and I like walked out and I was like, wow. Huh. And it was like also clear to me that like when she said she couldn't converse, what she meant was she couldn't hear me talking to her anymore. She needed to talk. And she talked, I mean, for 20 minutes, and then she spent an hour in the mikveh, and it was a day when no one else was coming in, and it was like amazing. It was like so beautiful. And very quickly, I will say, the same thing essentially happened another time, which is that somebody clearly needed me in a way that I was unprepared to be able to attend to her. And it was when I was holding up the sheet at Mayyim Hayyim. We have a sheet for modesty, right? I'm holding up the sheet. We did all the things. She immersed. I said kasher. I said, okay, I'm going to leave now and you can have some time alone in the mikveh. And I walked and I went to the door and she said, just wait a second. I have a question. I'm holding a sheet up. I'm like, yeah, what's your question? And she said, well, I just wanted to know. I'm over here in the corner like this. She said, I'm here for a lot of reasons. And one of them is that my daughter had a miscarriage. I said, okay. And she's like, well, I just don't know. Is that okay? And I was like, I don't think I understand your question. She was like, well, can I come for my daughter's miscarriage? And I was like, oh, you mean because it was your daughter's experience? And she said, yeah, it wasn't my miscarriage. And I was like, I hear that. And you can't experience what she experienced. But I think you can probably immerse for your own loss of a future grandchild. I'm sitting there in the corner like this. And she was quiet and she was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I was like, whoo, because I was in there in the corner and I was like, well, now what am I going to say? Her daughter miscarried and she needs to know, can she, like, it was almost a halachic question, but it wasn't. And I was like, I don't know what to say. And then I swear I didn't even think about it. I just heard myself say, I think you can always immerse for your own loss, and that everybody who's around somebody who loses a pregnancy also loses the potential for that. And they really, really, now is the best time to immerse for it on your own, because you can't share that with her anyway. You can only have it for yourself. And I was like, listen to that. And she was like, that's what I needed. And then I left with my I walked out like this. Okay, goodbye. And I thought to myself, you know what? I think that was the right answer. And I think we can all accept that sometimes other people's losses are our own losses, and also not take away the part of it that was theirs. Thanks, everybody.